Ladies, gentlemen, am I often forgotten, but certainly not by me, Acceleration Power Burst. Welcome to the channel and welcome to another guide. In this guide, we are continuing to update some of my older guides and ones that have been affected by the FSOA changes, and today is no different as we are going to take a look at Magic Camp at ED1. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get into this guide. So here I have my preset loaded up, and as far as an Elite Dungeon preset, it is pretty standard. Looking at the worn equipment, we have Elite Tectonic here with kind of standard perks. On the top, I have Crackle 4, Relent 5, and Impatient 4, Devoted 4, and on the bottoms I have Biting 4 and Invig 4. Now I do have Genocidal on here. I would usually run Mobile. Now with the secondary perks on this robe specifically, I would actually swap out Biting 4 Hoarding for Biting 4 Mobile since death cost has been pretty cheap ever since they updated it a few months ago, and Genocidal is actually there for doing Carapac. But you could put Mobile with either one of these and it would do fine, and if you want to put something like Crystal Shield 1 with one of these perks, or any of the multitude of secondary perks you can combo with either of these perks, feel free to do so. I will leave a link in the description below to the wiki page that has all of the advanced perks and whatnot and all the combos and how to get them. The rest of the worn equipment is kind of bog standard. As far as Magic Camp goes, we have the Channeler's Ring with the enchantment. This is best in slot as far as I know for Magic Camping. If you have a Reaver's Ring, it's not going to be too big of a deal. However, Channeler's Ring is best in slot as of now. In the EOF, I just have a G-Staff. I don't have anything else too fancy in here. I do hope at some point we can get another Spec Wep, or maybe an older Magic Spec Wep could get an update to kind of help out with Magic DPM, but for now, we have G-Staff and that's about it. Grim is just here to help with extra crit chance because FSOA spec still requires big boy crits in order to do a lot of damage, and Grim is certainly good at delivering those crits. I also have Appraisal, Wand and Orb here with just standard best in slot perks. If you have Seismics, those will do just fine, as I know that Appraisals can be kind of expensive, but Appraisals are an upgrade, so I do own them. Now the quiver here just has full arrows in it. This is just for an SGB swap to get some extra damage on it. If you have a physical SGB, go ahead and bring that. I just have Bow of the Last Guardian here because it's what I have. My physical SGB is actually in Keepsake because it looks nice, and I don't want to pull it out of Keepsake just for SGB swapping because the preset has some decent leeway, which we'll get into later, and this EOF just has the SGB spec. And per usual, the FSOA just has best in slot perks on it. Nothing fancy here. The Zuck Cape here is just the hybrid version. If you have the standard version, that will work absolutely fine as long as you get the buffed Omni Power. Now the other two switches I have in my preset are a Karoming for equal 2 swap. Karoming 4 will work just fine, equal 2 is kind of overkill, and I just have this on a T88 because it was cheap to make. This could be on a tier 85 or even a tier 80 offhand, it does not matter, because once you swap to Karoming for Greater Chain, you just swap back to your Imperium Core or whatever your offhand is and do the next ability for full damage. And the singularity here is Flanking. I decided to bring Flanking because it is nice at Sanctum. You can get some good flank hits in. When he's doing that little spin attack, you'll see it later. And on Seiryu's head, you can stand in the corners and get flanks off there. And being that we don't have any penalties now for dealing with dual wield camping, we can now just G-Conk into a flank in a Sunshine or outside of a Sunshine, and we can get the benefits from it, which inside of a Sunshine makes impact hit very high as well as deep impact. So I think they're pretty worthwhile. And also when Masuta is doing his spin and walking you back and forth on the staircase, that also counts as flank range, so the more damage, the better. As far as food usage is concerned, I just have Super Guthix, Brews, and I have some blue blubbers. There isn't really anything special here. If you want some more healing, go ahead and swap these out for either regular brews or super brews. I do have a Portent of Restoration here. These are very nice to use in the fact of you don't actually have to use them at all. There is no user input when using these. They just auto-consume when your health goes below half. So if you have 1 or 2 inventory spots left in a preset and you don't really know what to throw in here, just throw in a couple Portents and you'll be off to the races. I have Dominion Mines here for the crystals at seiryu. They are very nice there and they do a lot of damage, which makes dealing with the third crystal and the first crystal very nice. The enhanced wrist wraps here are just for dealing with crystals themselves. Weapon poison doesn't work on the crystals, so I figure I might as well just bring these and get the benefits that they offer. Now, if you wanted to go overboard, you could bring a lunging for equal to swap, then use with combust so you get the 1.5 times multiplier because they are static targets, and then you use debreath to get the extra 25%, thus making combust a very strong basic. However, even for someone like me, I find this a little bit ridiculous, but if you want to go ahead and spend the money on the switches, which let's be honest, ED1 is kind of a GP printing factory, go ahead and bring it. It will technically be worthwhile. It'll be worthwhile on Sanctum, it'd be worthwhile on the head, it would be worthwhile on the crystals. There are quite a few static targets inside of elite dungeons. Vuln bombs are kind of standard, they just do a lot of damage, so bring enough to chuck on as many targets as you feel like chucking them on. Acceleration power burst is very much worthwhile in any elite dungeon because usually in each of the dungeons there is a gap that takes a while to run through, and you can just go ahead and use the acceleration power burst to save a couple seconds by just zooming on through. As far as a shield is concerned, this is just kind of standard in every preset I do. I never really go without a shield, but just bring whatever shield you have. It could be an arcane, it could be this merciless, it could be a defender, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. I also do like using shields for divert now. As I keep playing this game and divert is out for longer and longer, I'm starting to realize its benefits are even stronger than I first realized, so it is another reason to bring a shield in the first place. Now, the lucky charms are here just to help with a little bit of GP gain, and on the lucky charm table there is a Sea Singer upgrade kit that's worth about anywhere from 8 to 10 mil. So honestly, I think these are pretty worthwhile to bring, plus they help give some extra onyx dust and a few other things. And since with this dungeon food usage isn't too high, you can go ahead and have a little bit of leeway to bring in stuff like lucky charms or a glove swap or, you know, other random switches and whatnot. Now I'll just hover over my rune pouches real quickly to see what runes are in each of them. Feel free to copy them if you want. These are just the standard setup that the PVME provides, but feel free to pause the video if you need. And I do bring an overload in the preset, as realistically speaking, you're not going to get through a dungeon run in a single overload dose, even though some of the world records at this place actually do allow you to go with one overload dose through a whole dungeon, but that's a completely different thing. So I just bring the overload dose to help out. Alright, that's pretty much it as far as the preset is concerned. Let's just go ahead and look at some of the supporting gear and whatnot. As far as relics, I actually do run a different relic setup for elite dungeons. I do run Luck of the Dwarves, and I just toss Blessing of Het in there usually for a bit of extra healing. However, since I don't have my perks kinda set up the way I want to right now, I just run Shadow's Grace because we don't have to worry about a melee swap not getting Barge Adren, so we can just run it and have mobile for free. But the reason I run Luck of the Dwarves is I am just deathly afraid of getting a cheese and tomato bata from the elite dungeons. If I ever saw that in my chest, or God forbid I saw a doubled one, I'd honestly consider quitting just because I didn't want to put a relic on. Now, if you're not as fearful as I am of something like this occurring, go ahead and just run Zerk Fury here, and the extra damage will be very helpful in the dungeon. Or if you're a little bit worried about the damage intake, you could sub this out for Death Ward and Fury of the Small. The Adren game, while minor from Fury of the Small, is nice and create a little bit of a safety net as far as calming one's nerves, and Death Ward for when you're starting to get bodied by some of the trash mobs, or Masuta. The damage reduction there can help you survive a little bit easier without panicking too much. And as far as the bank preset is concerned, it's pretty much just the standard thing that I use for everywhere. I use Quarm, Lantidime, and Spiritweed incense sticks. I use Powder of Penance, and I use a Calg Demon with scrolls, obviously, and I do use an Ogre Flask, as well as bonfiring over on the bonfire here, just for the added HP benefits. And then I do have a Weapon Poison Triple Plus and a Summoning Renewal here. The Summoning Renewal is kind of a wash when it comes to Calg Demon because you're only really spamming it once per minute, and for the point where I want to spam it before I go up onto the crystals at seiryu, the Spirit Weed Incense will easily make up for that little bit of spam that I want to do. So if you wanted to save a little bit of GP, you could just not use Spirit Weed Incense, and if there's another one you want to use, feel free to toss it in. And obviously the spellbook I'm using is the Ancient Spellbook that is kind of bog standard for anything related to Magic Camp. Now, something I wanted to show real quickly, if you are having to use an EOF setup, this is how I like to have my SGB swap set up. And even with a physical SGB, I do something similar, but it's not nearly as many inputs. But on my thumb buttons down here somewhere, I just have my SGB bound. And so when I press it, these two bars show up. Now, this is just my standard range 2-hand main bar, and I just take all of the inputs that I need for SGB and I put them on the bar, and then I just have the abilities up here. So when I don't want a SGB spec, I just pull them back down, and it makes life a bit simpler. Now, you could just have a dedicated action bar to this and set up the actions inside of your settings for bar binding. However, what I do is I have the prayer, the EOF, ingenuity of the humans, and the EOF spec, and then over here I have the EOF that I normally use, which is G-Staff, and my magic prayer. So when all I want to do is do an SGB swap, I just hit the one thumb button. I go ahead and roll over all of the keys, Q through R, and then hit A through S and hit my normal thumb buttons for going back to dual wield, because as you see down here, I have my dual wields and my 2-hand bound over again. This is actually a separate bar. This is my main bar for having range swaps on. But since I'm not using range in any capacity here, I just put them here as kind of a redundant thing, but it's just so I can press my 2 thumb buttons and get back to my main mage setup. So very quickly, just to show it in practice, say I'm just attacking something and I want to SGB, I'll just hit my SGB, let the spec go out, hit A and S, and then my dual wield equip, and I'm back over to mage, and I'm just going back to regular rotations. It's a very easy way to incorporate SGB or off-style SGB into your magic rotations, or if you really want to go all out with a melee setup and bring off-style, you can do that as well. Now, there are also some benefits that some very advanced players will use, which is with bringing an SGB swap, you also have access to Incendiary Shot, which can be used in some scenarios to where you're using this in combination with Tsunami and you use Tsunami later on in your Sunshine rotation, to where essentially you are always under some form of crit buffing ultimate, meaning that you're always getting the benefit of every time you crit, you get 10% adrenaline. However, I'll be perfectly honest, I am pretty lazy when it comes to anything like this, so I usually just skip doing any type of incend stall or incend on some type of trash mob, and I just use it for an SGB swap, but I figured I would mention it just so y'all know. But I think that is enough rambling. I think it is time to get into an example run. Alrighty, we have the preset loaded up. As you notice, my aura is on 24 instead of 30. I may or may not have forgot to press the record button, and I got halfway through a run. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into a run because I am recording this time. So we'll just go ahead and get right into it. Alright, start off on normal mode. Now here, what I like to do, make sure my Grim is on. I use Grim throughout the whole dungeon. If you want to turn it on for just the bosses, feel free to do it to save on charge, but I just kind of get lazy, and I usually forget to turn it on anyways. So what I'll do here is surge kind of over this way, and I'll click on this part of the stair just on this little like vertical line, and as soon as I turn surge and then bladed dive to this tile, I will corrupt blast that guy, G-chain into an Omni, and then D-breath, and just kind of target cycle whatever's left. Now this is the first part while I will use my power burst to kind of just get over here. And I'll tell you guys later why I do that, but here I'll just G-chain this guy, charge up a detonate, and release it with a tsunami. Spec this guy. Alright, they died. Then here I'll hit anticipate, corrupt the guy in the middle, hit a G-chain, hit a wild magic, and Dragon Breath the far guy so it hits all 3. If the third is alive, and then kill these guys off with like a basic or 2, surge down to the door, and continue on our merry way. Now here what I'll do is hit G-chain on this guy, and then hit Omni Power, walk back a tile, so these 3 here will kind of line up nicely, and then just hit a Corrupt Blast and a Magma Tempest, and I like to stand on this tile here. So that way, once I am done killing these guys, I automatically get the aggro of these 3, and I just have to take one step back. They'll form up nicely into a little triangle formation. You can just G-chain, charge a detonate, and release it with a Dragon Breath and Surge. Usually they die on tick, and you can surge on through. Sometimes they like to not die. Kind of a coin flip of whether they die or not. Then here, I'll just kind of surge around. Then get over here. I like to devotion this part and anticipate so I don't get stunned. Hit another corrupt blast. Maybe a G chain into a D breath so it hits all of them twice. Then here, just maybe ice rack the last guy. Alright, now what I like to do here is run up of this way and then surge bladed dive over to this tile here. And what that'll allow to happen is all of these Arhats will get stuck on this pillar here. It looks like they can't get blocked by it, but they absolutely can. And now it's just a matter of killing Sanctum. So kind of Von Bomb, then target cycle with Smoke Cloud into a G Conk, D Breath, and a third basic, and just kind of do a standard Sun rotation here. Nami into an FSOA spec, swap over to Exsanguinate, Wild Magic, continue into a 2-hit Asphyx, G Conk, into an Omni Power, and a flank, a Threshold flank, auto G Conk, into a Deado charge. I'll release this with a Tendies. Go into a G Conk, into a Wild Magic. Continuous into a 2-hit Asphyx and a G Staff. And then once that bar depletes, just surge forward. Hit my SGB spec, go back to Magic. If you want to, you can res this hit. No harm, no foul there. Sometimes I just tank it because I don't feel like it and I'd rather just go for the damage. But just kind of threshold here, and then once it's dead, just run over to the door and enter. I try not to bladed dive to the door, so that way I actually have it for this part here. And what I'll do is I will bladed dive surge, and then surge, run up to the gate, and then target this guy, and then just kind of corrupt blast, and ice rack, and D-breath, all that good stuff, all those good AoE abilities. And here what I like to do is hit Devotion, surge bladed dive, target the middle one with G-chain, charge a Deado, release it with D-breath. Sometimes they all die, sometimes they don't, and then I like to surge bladed dive again. Use my Excel pot. If you don't use the Excel pot in the first room, you won't have it here if you go fast enough. A lot of people on the, like, kind of, I forget which room it is, just before Sanctum, if you use it there, that used to be a very popular spot to use it. You won't have it for this section over here. Now, what I like to do at this part is just click on this tile right here. Bladed dive over here, and then on these guys, I'll choose like a corrupt and a G chain and maybe a D breath, just so it hits them all twice. The ice rack this guy, he's on 200. And if you want to, you can click this tile and surge up, or just run up. It doesn't really matter. But on this part, what I like to do is surge bladed dive to this tile here. G chain this middle guy, charge up a detonate, auto detonate tsunami, and then kind of just kill whatever's left over. If you're fast enough, usually G-Chain will hit all of them because it will be on the tick that they have not summoned their minions. Now here, I'll like the G-Chain again, and hit Omni Power, and then just like D-Breath this guy, and usually it all dies. Sometimes he needs a little more Persuasion. And then I'll Ice Barrage these guys, and then just do like an Auto Tempest into like a D-Breath. And here, Surge Bladed Dive to this tile, so these guys all form up nicely. G-Chain, Deado, Rinse, Repeat, kind of like earlier. And you can also do a Corrupt and a Tempest. Now, you could do Corrupt Tempest before and then G-Chain into a Deado release with Nami. That's up to you. I've kind of just done this order randomly, but once these four are dead and once those two are dead, that's when these gates open up. I like to Surge Bladed Dive here as to avoid the Rangers. And then Corrupt. And here I'll usually just G-Chain into a Wild Magic. Hit a D-Breath. He got healed, but it's fine. And just kind of basic these guys down. Ice Rack does a lot of damage still, so it is worthwhile to do. And then here what I'll do is I will Surge down, and then click on this tile here. And then what I'll do is I'll usually hit like an Anticipate, Surge Bladed Dive, and then TC into a Sunshine. And it's a Smoke Cloud into a Sunshine, G-Conk, D-Breath, Basic, Auto Nami, and kind of just do a Sunshine rotation here. And I'm paying attention to when he starts his spin. do a couple of abilities and then hit devotion. You don't want to hit it right away, like the tick he's doing his spin, because then your devotion will run out. And you can flank while he's doing his spin, so should you want to take advantage of that, just maybe do something like into attendees, into a Omni. And he's already phased. Usually I'll phase him anywhere from the 27 to the 35, 37 second mark. Just kind of depending on what I get as far as crit RNG. Now on this part, a lot of people like to do the walk him south and only kill some of these. I prefer not to do that, and I prefer to tell learners to stand MD to these thrashing waters, because as you kill them, you'll notice this number goes up, and you get 5% per each thrashing water kill. This is damage reduction for P3, and it makes that magic hit, the big one he does that usually KOs people and they don't understand why they just got one shot. It really helps reduce all of that damage you take P3, and so I usually recommend just killing the thrashing waters anyway. So the range hits do less, the magic autos do less. It is just an overall damage reduction as far as phase 3 is concerned. Which once people kind of get over the spin attack and they figure out how to time devotion for that, that's usually what KOs people here at Masuta. Is phase 3 is just not seeing that magic hit. Now we're here about a minute and 15 after the phase. That's about when I'll hit natural instinct. So whatever time you phase them into phase 2, whether it's 35 or a 20 or a 27 or whatever, just kind of add a rough like minute 10 to a minute 15 after that, and that's about when I'll hit natural instinct. And from out here, he'll do 2 range autos into a mage hit the first time, and then I believe it's 5 range autos into a magic hit. It's important to vuln him. I usually forget, or sometimes it just doesn't go off. And see, the magic only hit a 3300 there because I have some good damage reduction instead of, the 9k that usually it hits. If you want to do the method from the south and you're fine with, managing your prayer flicking, by all means do that. That is a fair method, I guess. But once he's dead, just go down the hidden staircase. Now this part is the most obnoxious ever since they made it to where all of the defense pylons target you. So what I do is kind of not so much on tick, but I just try to go as fast as possible to deal with these things as least as possible. So what I'll do, I'll start running out, surge bladed dive, let my HP go as low as I dare it, and then hit devotion, target this middle one, and then kill it as quick as possible for a devotion extension, and then just kill these 2. And here, what I'll do is I'll bladed dive, use my Excel potion to bladed dive surge there. Alrighty, so on the seiryu that I just tried, I did not get the middle crystal because I just wasn't paying attention. I was sitting here explaining things and having a good time explaining all that stuff and how it works, and I just completely lost focus and did not get the middle crystal down. And so I'm going to show you the rotation that I use to get 1 cycles. This works about 60 to 70% of the time. It obviously depends on crit chance, but let's just go ahead and get into it. So as before, I'll use my Excel pot here, and then just use a couple bleeds as I run in, and then just do a sunshine, maybe get a smoke cloud off. Then on this line here, you can get a flank off. Auto G-Conk into a Nami. Maybe press an ability so I can get my staff spec off. Swap over to Exsanguinate. Wild Magic. Continuous into a 2-hit Asphyx. Maybe go for a deep flank and a basic flank. This spawned close enough to where I'll probably have to move, but I'll hit Omni Power into attendees. Did not skip the breath here, but it's not a big problem. Stand on this tile and jump up. And you also want to hit your Calc spec before you go up. But I'll prep a Vuln Bomb here, click the Vuln Bomb, Smoke Cloud, Surge, drop my mines, maybe do like an auto Wild Magic into a Asphyx. Charge up a Deado, release with an Omni Power. Maybe do an Ice Rack and Ruin. Another couple bleeds, build up some Insight Fear stacks. And here I usually wait for this 5th one to spawn, and that's when I start my Sunshine rotation. Auto G-Conk, Nami. And here I will actually Limitless just for Tendrils to make sure the middle crystal dies. Into a G-Conk, and then if I have to, I will G-Staff, but I'll Surge. And then Smoke Cloud with a Tempest there. Charge a Detonate after a G-Conk. On that 6th Uber, release my Detonate with a... I'll explain it in a second. I don't think my mines are going to go off. Can I get the 1 cycle? We do. Okay, so sometimes if you're not quick enough with the mines, they just won't pop off, or if things crit too much, but usually if you're critting that much, you'll get it without the mines anyway. And also, one important thing is if you go up this eastern side and you get to the middle crystal and surge into it, so therefore your melee distance, and plant your ultimate here, whether you're using magic or range, if you melee distance this crystal over here, you will still be inside of your ultimate, so you can just stand melee distance and not worry about running back to get the ultimate buff on all of your thresholds. Whereas if you go up the western side and do something like that, you surge into the middle crystal here and you plant your ultimate. If you surge all the way over to this crystal, you will be outside of your ultimate. This is a tile you can stand on when this is the 3rd crystal, and your ultimate will be back here, 1 tile out of range. So when doing magic runs here, or even range runs, I will go up the eastern side. If I'm doing melee runs, it doesn't matter too much because, you know, Zerk is your ultimate and you can stand wherever. You're not confined to like a 5x5 space. Now, one thing I will note is if you run Zerk Fury, the consistency for this setup of 1 cycle goes up much more, especially if you force yourself to keep either the Deflect Mage on or just no Soul Split at all, and try and keep your HP very low. The consistency will go up a lot. However, if you're kind of fearful like me and you just don't want to see cheese and tomato Batas inside of your chest, well, it's definitely ideal to then just run Luck of the Dwarves. Hopefully at some point they make Luck of the Dwarves relic either like on a skilling set of relics. Imagine like we had an additional 3 slots for relics and they were just skilling ones, so all of like the XP buffs or Luck of the Dwarves or any of these other kind of ancillary ones that don't really get too much use, or like the rune crafting ones, etc. If they were just on their own slot and you got benefits from them, but the PVM and the skilling ones were separate, that would be nice. Or if they just made Luck of the Dwarves like 50 relic power, I would be perfectly fine with that, and run it in the 3rd slot with Zerk Fury. But that's a topic for another video on updates that I would like to see in the game. Anyways, I'm just going to go over kind of the key points in the run as far as setup is concerned. So we will just go ahead and jump down. I'll go back through the dungeon and just point out different things as far as different lures that come to mind, other things and movement and whatnot, and we'll go from there. So in case you missed it the first time, what I do here is, as far as movement is going, I'm running down the stairs. I click on this little line in the stairs and surge bladed dive over to this tile here, and that's how that works. And then afterwards, I just use my Excel pot and just kind of mash all the way down here and whatnot. And then the next important bit as far as lures are concerned is in here through this door. So what I like to do in this door, as you saw, is use G-Chain with Omni, but what I do here is all the way back here, as soon as I get into the room, that is when I equip my Karoming Swap, and then I just click on the dude and hit my G-Chain button, and it stalls the ability, but you're running forward to the right distance to attack him with G-Chain. And then as soon as you see your animation release, usually you'll be on this tile here, or maybe it's this tile. I can't always remember which line it is, but all you have to do is take 1 step back, and then what will happen is the 3 on the right here will all come over and line up very nicely for your Magma Tempest, your Corrupts, your Dragon Breaths, whatever you need to kill them off. And while you're doing those abilities, usually 99% of the time, G-Chain Omni will kill the guy in the center completely. If not, he'll be on like 100 HP and it won't matter too much anyways. And so what you can do is just surge over here and then run over to this tile right here And from this tile, you can access the guy that has been standing here the whole time. Any stragglers that still might be alive here, you will be able to just target cycle through. And you can target cycle these from here, but you're always going to hit these first when doing normal runs. I'm just not hitting them because obviously they're dead from the run. And like I said, for this group of 3 that will be spawned here, this one will get the aggro, which will in turn aggro this one, which will in turn aggro this one. And all you have to do is step back 1 tile, let them get into their little place, and then you move forward to about this tile, maybe this tile, target the one that's usually in the corner where kind of like the arrow of their little formation is pointing, target that guy, and then just deado, and then you'll be able to usually surge through the gate as you release the deado. Now for Sanctum, in case you missed it the first time, what I like to do is once these guys are all dead, I literally just click going this way, running this direction, and as soon as I get far enough in, I will just surge bladed dive to this tile, and that'll get all of the Arhats stuck behind this pillar right here. And then you can just toss a Vuln Bomb to over here. Anywhere on this line will count for the Vuln Bomb, and then you can just drop your Sunshine here and do all of the damage you please. So once I kill the 2 mages that are right here, I usually just death dot on top of the center one and attack this one. Usually AoEs and other things will just kill off the center one, but if not, you can usually just G-conk this guy. What I like to do is click around this corner over to here, surge as soon as I turn the corner, and then I'll hit devotion, and then on the global, or during the global cooldown, that's when I surge bladed dive to here and try and spam click in front of the center mage here. And then as you saw, it is just a matter of keeping range prayer up, targeting this one with a G chain. If the earlier you can G chain here, the absolute better, because that gives less time for these mages and some of the other mobs over in this corner to either come over or for them to spawn some other minions and have G-chain go on things you don't want it to go on. Now, if you're an absolute shad and really good at clicking on targets while surging, what you can do is devotion, surge, bladed dive here, and then when that global cooldown releases, immediately G-chain this guy as you get to here, and that'll work out just fine. Usually I wait the extra couple ticks because I'm not fast enough to do that right now. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Kill these guys, and then this section here is where I like to use my second Excel pot. So what I'll do is here, I'll literally just activate Excel, surge, bladed dive, bladed dive, bladed dive, surge, bladed dive, bladed dive, surge. And that'll get me kind of all the way around here to then tangle with this, to then kill off this single mage here and be off to the races this way. Now, an easy way in order for you to be able to click on these bladed dive locations is to make sure you have the freedom camera on. It could be the classic or it could be the RS3 camera, but as long as you have it on freedom to be able to zoom out like this, I just have it on my scroll wheel to zoom in and out, and I will zoom out here, and just so it makes it easier, so once I round the corner, to example, just surge bladed dive up to the tile that I need, and you want to be on the tile for this set of mages that's directly south of the last mage in this line of 5. The other bit of important movement I can think of is once you get to here, is to just surge bladed dive around this corner so you avoid the mage. And then you just run over here. Sometimes this guy will get aggroed and move around. You just kind of have to zoom in a little bit while standing here. Find the cloaked zealots or whatever they're called. Now for this next movement part, I know this might have looked a little bit fancy, but trust me, it's nothing too special. So just as normal, I'll usually end up freezing these guys anyways with an ice rack and then surge down here. I click to a tile, and then I use an ability, like a defensive here, so I can surge bladed dive off cooldown, and then pop my ultimate on tick. So it looks something like this. I'll hit my ultimate, and it would, that's the exact movement. Now right there, what I do is after I hit surge bladed dive is I immediately hit target cycle, smoke cloud, and sunshine. That is the order of operations. And then after that, click your Wrapup, kill Masuta, do all the DPS you need to do. And once you're done, obviously you go back down the hidden staircase. And as far as this room is concerned, the defense pylons, this is definitely going to give people a lot of trouble. And if you're struggling here, just keep practicing. But what I like to do is you already spawn facing the direction you need to go, and I always go this side. You can go the other side and then target these 3. It doesn't really matter too much which one you do, but again, you just surge bladed dive out, tolerate the hits as long as you possibly can, hit your devotion, and then kill these 3 and get your devotion extensions that you need. And once you're done, you just Bladed Dive Surge. And then use your A pot, or your Excel pot there, so once you hit the Bladed Dive, you'll hit your acceleration potion. That'll immediately reset your Bladed Dive, and then you can Bladed Dive Surge here, and then that'll start the fight with seiryu. Let me know in the comments down below if you liked me going through showcasing some of the lures and other surge and bladed dive spots in a little bit more detail. I usually don't do this on Elite Dungeon guides, but I figured it might be a nice little benefit for y'all out there, where in the original run or the example run, some of these details, the finer details might be overlooked a little bit. Just let me know down in the comments what y'all think. Anyways, I hope you found this guide helpful. Let's go ahead and roll that outro. Ladies, gentlemen, and I did not forget about you, Acceleration Power Burst. Thank you very much for watching. Your viewership is greatly appreciated. Have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, nighttime, whatever it is, wherever you are, and I will see you next time for the next guide. Peace.